Serious, people who work in the film industry, what is a set like when everyone there knows you're making a terrible movie? I worked on a few Roger Corman movies in the 90s, so we knew we were making cheap throwaway films. Most of the people there were working to get experience and have a few things to put on resumes. Things that would drop off quickly when better things came along. Just about everyone worked as hard as they could and had a great time busting our butt to make Carnosaur 3. I'm a camera operator. It entirely depends on the mindset of the director and producer. In the entertainment industry, you're working on people's personal art in a lot of ways, which can make those who created it take criticism personally. Much yelling and insults are thrown about when those in charge are having a bad day. That can make for a really crappy day if you're the one they're taking it out on. Those who say no one cares and it's all for a paycheck don't work closely with the creators. I was an extra in a few movies, mostly TV and one Hollywood movie, none of them an award winner. Mostly everyone is there for the paycheck and catering. We hardly care about the subject matter. I saw a documentary that interviewed crew from the first Star Wars movie. A lot of them thought what they were going was laughable and ridiculous. They thought the movie didn't have a chance in the theaters. I can only imagine their attitude on set. When the movie came out, the discouraged crew members were quite humbled, proud that they worked on the movie, and felt sorry for not working harder for Mr. Lucas. Is there a movie you've worked on where you had similar feelings but when the movie hit theaters it was a massive success? Just to add to your Star Wars bit, Alec Guinness famously said he took the part because he loved the idea of playing a magic wizard. As a trailer editor that works in feature film marketing, I never work on a terrible movie. They're all great. Yep. Starring special effects as the plot and threatening one-liners as the cast. And boom, the most important sound ever heard as the reason this film was made. Source: trailer editor 2. Those who are saying lighting a bad performance works exactly the same as lighting a good one are correct. However, when one is not getting paid or just working for points, a percentage of the film's profits, things aren't quite the same. People start to drop off out once it's been established that you're working on a bad movie with a bad director. Either people will make excuses for why they can't show up or they just flat out disappear. Also, crew morale is terrible on bad sets. Movie sets are usually a fun place to work. Not the case when you know all your efforts are for nothing. No money, and no pride in the project. You'll constantly debate with yourself on the merits of leaving the project versus staying on and finishing your job. Being a director on a project that isn't going well is rough. Everyone is secretly trying to rush you so that the day can end sooner. For instance, the cinematographer might lie to you about lens focus, or actors will tell you that the scene felt good when it clearly did not. When someone tells you about a last minuet funeral they have to go to, you know they are lying to your face, and it does hurt your soul a bit. On projects where everyone is getting paid, even directors' writers seem to be okay with making schlock. I did encounter a writer once who was furious that the director was ruining his work. Every day they would have a big fight on set. I wish someone had recorded it, because it was viral video worthy stuff. Adam Sandler's movie Jack and Jill had a budget of over $79 million and grossed $149,673,788. He used the money to party with friends and frick around on set but justified it for saying it was for the movie. But the movie reviewed as one of the worst movies ever made. So in truth, he made a terrible movie because A, he didn't give a crap if it sold. B, it wasn't his money. Many companies will put out these monumental catastrophes knowing the movie will bomb at the box office because they are only serving their bottom line of making a quick buck. A company will also have an X amount for a budget that is to be spent, or otherwise for the next quarter they lose that budget and it's lowered, so they frivolously spend it to ensure the budget is kept. I worked for a TV show, high Nielsen ratings, but dumb show. The crew was there because it was a job. They were a really good crew too. Didn't really care about the script or subject matter. Actors likewise didn't seem care, unless asked in interviews of course. The producers and publicity were always trying to pump everyone up though, and tout awards and such. But no one paid much attention. It was just a job for us. Although I will say, in LA, you always have to watch your mouth and not speak badly of your show or another show. You don't know who's worked on what and might get offended. Obviously, two broke girls. My husband was a character actor for many years in movies. Yes, you would have seen him. With very few exceptions, everyone is very professional on big movies, because that's what it takes to get that far. Someone is putting up a lot of money to pay all these people and everyone is serious about it. Sure, there might be some eye-rolling or lighting truck banter about some corny scene or whatever, but most people are just paying attention to their jobs. There is so much to do, except for the actors. The one time I went on the set, it was for a B movie he was essentially doing as a favor. Had some ex-big stars in it. The call was for 7 AM and he didn't shoot until 3:30. We sat in a trailer watching TV all day. I don't know how they do it. Gah. The boredom. Hurry up and wait equals adequate summary of most acting and modeling jobs. I have worked on a few of these. On one set it was very awkward because the writer was essentially using his life savings to bankroll the whole thing. There were numerous problems with his script, but when we would bring this up to him, he'd ignore us. And since he was paying the bills, he was the boss. The worst is that he genuinely thought it was going to be an amazing movie. He would casually bring up things like Academy Awards and Cannes. Then one day his 10-year-old son, who was a super annoying presence on set, asked him about buying a video game. The dad's answer was, well, when this movie makes millions of dollars, you can have all the video games you want. Just terrible parenting. Don't promise your kid something that you probably won't be able to provide, and don't ever promise your kid that they can have everything they want. I also was hired to write a movie by a maniac in Philly whose name is Peter DeFeo, and I am happy to put his name out there because if you are looking for production work in Philadelphia, stay the heck away from him and International Artist Studios. Full stop. Peter is the closest to Tommy Wiseau that I have ever met. He has delusions of grandeur while being totally incompetent in every aspect of filmmaking. I have written scripts. I'm not a great Hollywood screenwriter, but I know what I'm doing. Peter, however, did not. He would hand me his story notes and they made no sense. His secretary once asked him if the whole story was just a dream. It was not, but it had the same lack of internal logic that a dream has. It was supposed to be a screwball sex comedy, but it was all over the place. The whole time I was writing it, I just kept telling myself, it's just a job. It's just a job. Then after I had had enough and I really laid it on the line that nothing he was telling me was making any sense, he called me into his office and told me that a man named Harold Cushin was the actual CEO of this crappy little studio and that Harold Cushin was firing me. After that, he refused to pay me the money that he owed me and kept telling me that Harold Cushin wouldn't approve it. He thought I would go away. I did not. Instead, I took him to an arbitration hearing in which I produced not only documents to show that Peter, not the mysterious Harold Cushin, was the CEO of the company, so it was he who was holding back my pay, but I also produced a copy of Harold Cushin's death certificate. He had died 2 years before I ever started to work for them. Peter was trying to screw me out of my money by blaming it on a dead guy. I not only got my money, but the arbitrator awarded me a bunch of fees and penalties that Peter had to pay for essentially committing fraud. I've read interviews with actors who say it can be hard to tell on set that it's a crummy movie. So much of the quality of the movie depends on editing, mixing, and post-production that the people on set just sort of do their best and hope for the best. The most common answer in this thread is correct. Most people are on set to collect a paycheck and will work their positions to the best of their abilities. But that being said, you do sometimes work on a project that you know is going to be flat out terrible, but you keep your head down, do your job, and hope that crafty doesn't run out of caffeine. I have worked on some multi-day commercials that I thought were going to be terrible while we were shooting them, but they turned out amazing in the edit room. Editing is magic. I have nothing but respect for editors. I was in a movie for sci-fi. Going into it, you know it's not Shakespeare. Most people have the same attitude about it, and that can make for a looser atmosphere. There is a ton of goofing around and generally not taking anything too seriously. The pressure is less for a movie of that caliber. Because of that, there is room to improvise. There is something fun about being in something terrible, sometimes. On the other hand, I have been in a bad TV show for ABC and it was not such a good time. The pressure from the execs was palpable and it made everyone stress. The amount of money and resources that goes into a show like that is mind-boggling. When you have 2 weeks to shoot one show with huge set pieces and a large ensemble, it makes the work less about getting it right and more about getting it in the can and off to the studio. We still had fun, but the pressure made for some interesting days. At the end of the day, a film is just a product, like a foodstuff. And while there's a market for Wagyu beef, there's also a market for marshmallow fluff, and it's not nobler to make one than the other. I have found it's hard to tell if the film is really that bad. I mean, I bet there were crew members on the original Star Wars going, "What the heck is this?" I think it's a bit of the opposite. Every show film is a gig and you're working your position, maybe trying to get moved up on the next show if the crew stays together. But sometimes when you're on something great you realize this. I saw this with my dad, who was a production recordist. Worked show to show but then got on some no-name show called Seinfeld. He rode that out year after year because he knew he was a part of something once in a lifetime. Also, the producers of Seinfeld were incredibly giving to their crews. Every show film is a gig. A successful actor I once saw at a Q&A said that one secret to his success was never turn down a gig. 10-year vet of Hollywood here. Nobody has any idea how the movie is going to turn out. I worked on a movie that I was sure was going to be a crappy Vince Vaughn movie. Old school. In the 70s. People couldn't wait to get off the set of a crappy sick-fee movie with what seemed like terrible production values. Star Wars. The movie I was in that I was sure was going to be a hit starred Jim Carrey and was directed by Frank Darabont. The Green Mile. The Walking Dead. The Majestic. TLDR. Nobody has any freaking clue what they are doing. I do craft service for a living, and if things are going poorly I'm the first person everyone comes crying to. There's comfort in snacks. The crew, above the line people excluded, could care less whether the commercial music video movie looks bad. All they want is good pay, good food, and coffee. Agreed. Thank you. You are the best person on set, and I love you. I am sorry you have to watch me eat half a box of chocolate chip cookies and hit my e-cig while not murdering my director. Thank you for stalking the monster. Let me know if you want anything done for Halloween. 3. I've never been on set, but my sister-in-law is a producer, so I have worked around people doing the post-production. There was one film she worked on. I walked into a room where the editing crew and graphics people were all sitting around a table just looking like someone had stabbed a puppy in front of them. I thought the funding had been cut or something. It happens on lower budget films all the time. Then one of the editors just looks up and says, "They took 50 takes of the same scene and none of them were good. Which one do I put in?" One of the graphics guys goes, "Maybe you could cut the scene altogether and replace it with another." Then another editor said, "This is the replacement scene for an even worse scene." I walked out. I'm pretty sure I heard crying after that. What I imagine would be worse is making an animated film that you know is bad. Just sitting there, watching it render frame by frame thinking, what the heck am I doing? Oh yeah, I am making money goes back to work. It depends on what you mean by terrible movie. I worked on Piranha 3D and everyone there was great, because we knew we were making a terrible movie to be funny. Same for people I know who worked on Sharknado. Those kinds of productions. You're not going in nervous, expecting an Oscar-worthy performance from everyone. The actors are less stressed, so are the camera operators, makeup, hair, catering, the AD department. It's a relief in a lot of ways to work on those movies. However, working on a movie that gets all kinds of hype to then become a flop, sometimes it doesn't feel awful until the results of opening weekend are in, and then, it's just a bummer. You were stressed for months, yelled at by a work to the bone AD department, a director who was butthole by the end of it, and an entire crew who didn't get enough sleep and hated everyone by week 2. But whatever, rain or shine, win or lose, you get a paycheck and you work through it to hope the next one is better. Most of the time scenes are shot out of order for time concerns. A lot times people don't realize they've made a bad movie until post-production. In my experience it can vary depending on who you're around. Some people will realize what's going on. Then there are those who are going to believe in the product until the reviews come in. For example, working on Pompeii, the wardrobe department had made up pins that said stuff like, "I wish a real volcano would hit this set," and you'd see a few people in the crew wearing them. but making sure not have them too visible down at the set because Paul W.S. takes himself very seriously despite the amount of campy crap he puts out. I've got more examples if people want. I'd love to hear more. I would imagine it's like when I used to work at an awful crappy company. Close co-workers would talk crap about how awful it is, but as far as the work goes, you have to just act like it's as legit as anything else and do your best. It's still a competitive atmosphere and you're still getting paid to do your job. Yes, sometimes people talk crap if the acting by the principal is bad or if they are really bad at remembering their lines. It frustrates everyone if an actor keeps flubbing over their lines. Sometimes it is understandable to mess up lines that are tongue twisters or are particularly funny. I've been an actor and worked crew for quite a few productions. Theater, not film. Being an actor in a bad production can range from very fun to awful. Was in a production of a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical that was just a freaking train wreck. The small town audiences loved it, but most of us couldn't stand it. It was fantastic because we dicked around and pulled pranks every night. However, the 3-hour production of Pride and Prejudice I was in is not something I put on my resume. If I could get a lobotomy to forget that, I'd consider it. Working crew for a bad show is almost always awful. It feels like work, which is definitely not supposed to be the point. I've never worked on anything big, but I imagine that this scales fairly well in this business. I've worked on some crappy films and some crappy plays, and let me tell you that everyone involved has an attitude of complete delusion. Your average actor, at least at the level I was performing at, isn't a terribly intelligent or well-read person. So even if they recognize that there's something off about a script, they'll assume that they just don't get it. Even when it's perfectly obvious that a piece is crap, everyone still pretends it's wonderful in public. In public here meaning in front of anything more than one other person, because the guy who wrote the script is often so and so's brother's wife's cousin, and connection is everything in this business. If you trash an objectively bad production that has a writer, director, or even a stage manager with connections, you're probably going to have a hard time finding work. So what you end up with is everyone pretending you're working on the next Citizen Kane, when you're actually doing Hamlet 2, Banquo's Revenge. I worked at the VFX company that made Gravity, and a good deal of 47 Ronin. The difference between the artists on each was marked. People were more enthusiastic about Gravity, and were proud of what they were making. Ronin, mostly it was this will be crap, but it'll look good I guess. Later on a very talented artist said to me, what is your favorite film you'd have loved to work on? I told him and now it's in the discount DVD section. It doesn't matter what you work on so long as you get paid. Truer words were never said. It's just about the paycheck. No one really cares how bad the acting or script is. We only care about if there is food and if working conditions are crappy. People usually wouldn't laugh over cheesy lines. In my head, I just roll my eyes. Extras have to stay professional, so even if something is genuinely funny, we have to put on a straight face and not laugh until they call cut. It's really not hard to keep a straight face. It's just part of the job. Worked on some crap indies. It was bad but it was fun. The only thing that matters on set is craft services. If it's good food, it's a good film. I worked as a PA on a really low budget film in the 90s. Wasn't in the industry, just that it was being filmed near my house and my friend was PA on the crew and offered me something to do for the summer. The morale was complete crap. Nobody wanted to help anyone else. I had to argue with the producer to get $10 to buy nails so I could build a wall for the set. He wanted me to look around to see if there were any in the sawdust in the shop floor first. The AD was getting the dong from the DP in a remote area of the location every day, and then she went OTR or something and started fighting with him openly on the set. Nasty, vicious stuff. Oh, and the food sucked. If the film is terrible but the production is smooth, that's one thing. You can make fun of what's going on. Kind of just kid around on set, and deal with it. If the film is both terrible and terribly run, then you're really in for a crappy ride. If the crew isn't really cared for, then a crappy project makes it all the more unbearable to keep trucking for. Of course, one keeps on trucking anyway because it's still a credit, but there have been times when I've dipped out of a project because it's unpaid, poorly managed, and a total piece of crap on the other end. No upside at all. I did a few straight to DVD movies when I was just starting out, and honestly I was optimistic it was just my inexperience leading to thinking it was bad, and that the crappy script would get taken care of by good acting, and the bad acting would get fixed with good editing, and the bad editing was when I gave up. It was all around bad from the start, but I thought some saving grace would swoop in and save it at some point, and that's why I don't do indie, or low budget, straight to DVD films anymore. Why am I gonna bust my butt 22 hours a day for someone else's crappy art? I've only worked on indie films, and everyone there doesn't know crap but thinks they do, and everyone hates criticism. So based on my limited knowledge I would say nobody says crap because people would rather wait till their film gets torn apart by real film critics and be publicly embarrassed than hear "Hey, this movie kinda sucks man" from a friend. Also, I should add I am no longer in the film industry because I like money. Man, it's so impossible to tell. I'm a director, but I'll mention times I've worked as an art director on a few films. There have been times when I thought the film we were making was going to be absolute crap. Looked like bad performances, bad cine, and bad writing. Then the film got accepted to Cannes and ended up launching that director's career. There were times when I felt like we were really creating something special, but the film ended up being a massive pile of crap. It's so hard to tell until it's finished. As an art director, I only really saw the set design and the costume design. I focused my attention on those aspects, and when I had time, I would see the other parts of the film coming together. I would get a glimpse and judge what we were creating based off of that. Not enough to know whether it will be terrible or not. As a director though, I always feel like I'm making a masterpiece, but then it usually ends up being garbage. Kind of a funny story about the filming of Super Mario Bros. In 1993. Read this in the IMDb trivia. I personally love that movie. In his 2007 autobiography, John Leguizamo states he and Bob Hoskins hated working on the film and would frequently get drunk to make it through the experience. Both men apparently knew the movie would turn out bad, so they simply tried to make the best of it. He also stated he felt one of the biggest reasons the movie turned out the way it did was because the directors wanted a more adult movie while the studio, considering the source material, was looking for a children's film. From the creative side, TV, it can be a bit embarrassing. When you're looking for laughter and there's no laughter, or it's forced, that's a terrible feeling. The eyes of those watching have weight and you want to squirm. It makes it worse that during run-throughs the writer-producers are front and center trying to see what's working. Sometimes nothing is. The thing to keep in mind is that Hollywood is to a large extent a case of too many cooks in one kitchen. Everyone has an opinion on everything and they all want to be heard. From the showrunners to network execs, usually several with conflicting opinions, to marketing and S&P. I can't tell you how many good jokes have died an awful death because the studio doesn't want to get letters or display imitable behavior. So, sometimes bad shows or movies are simply the result of bad writing or a bad concept or the need to capitalize on a trend, but oftentimes a bad show movie was something that was once good, then got crap on by 24 people with varying agendas and opinions. As an actor, I have been in them. You just cannot wait to film your scene and get the heck out of Dodge, and then you cross your fingers and hope that the check clears. You can see the attitude of the crew is different as well. When it's a quality production, the cast and crew are right on top of things. The cast know their lines. The crew do their jobs quickly and efficiently. With the low no budget films, the cast are still reading their script up until they get in front of the camera. Sometimes with the crew, you'll hear, "Where's that person?" will be behind a trailer smoking a joint or downing some booze. Completely different attitude. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.